You are absolutely not dying in my garden. Lily Carter heard herself say it before common sense had time to object. Rain hammered the roof of her cottage and poured from the eaves in silver sheets, turning the narrow path behind the house into mud. She stood barefoot beneath the back doorway with a lantern in one hand and a fireplace poker in the other, staring at the largest black wolf she had ever seen. It had landed directly in the middle of her herb garden. 2 rosemary pots were crushed. Her wooden drying rack leaned sideways. A basket of lavender floated upside down in a puddle. The wolf lifted its massive head. Gray eyes met hers. Lily dropped the lantern. It hit the wet ground without breaking, but the flame vanished. Wonderful, she muttered. Now we are both useless. The wolf did not move. Up close, it looked less terrifying than exhausted. Its black fur was soaked with rain and coated in mud from shoulder to tail. One front leg trembled when it tried to shift its weight. Lily tightened both hands around the poker, then slowly lowered it. Every sensible Omega in Pine Hollow would have shut the door. Lily had never been especially gifted at sensible decisions. She disappeared inside and returned dragging her mother's old blue enamel washbasin across the porch. The metal scraped loudly over the boards. The wolf watched her with an expression so flat that she stopped. Do not start. You are the one who destroyed my rosemary. She filled 2 buckets with warm water from the stove, carried them outside, and nearly lost the first one when her heel slipped on the wet step. Water splashed across her dress. The wolf blinked. Lily pointed at him. Do not laugh. His ears moved. I mean it. Getting a giant wolf into a wash basin designed for blankets was impossible, so Lily abandoned the idea and used the basin to hold clean water instead. She knelt beside him with a cloth, working mud from the thick fur around his shoulders. The wolf remained unervingly still. Every few seconds, Lily glanced at his teeth and reconsidered every decision that had brought her to this moment. You know, she whispered, most guests knock. The wolf exhaled through his nose. She washed another streak of mud away. And most guests are smaller. When she reached his neck, he stiffened. Lily froze. Beneath the soaked fur was no collar, but something hard had caught near the base of his coat. She carefully worked the mud away until her fingers touched cold metal. A clasp. Black and silver. Heavy. Expensive. The shape was difficult to see beneath the remaining dirt, but something like a crown had been carved into its surface. Lily stared at it. The wolf stared at her. Thunder rolled somewhere beyond the pine trees. She slowly withdrew her hand. That, she said quietly, looks far too important for someone sleeping in my ruined garden. The wolf pushed himself upright. Lily scrambled backward, caught her foot on the wash basin, and fell directly into the muddy water she had just used to clean him. For one silent second, they stared at each other. Lily sat soaked from the waist down, hair stuck to her face, dignity gone. The enormous black wolf lowered his head. His gray eyes narrowed. Lily pointed a muddy finger at him. If you are laughing right now, I am putting the mud back. The wolf blinked once. Slowly, deliberately, and beneath the rain, Lily could have sworn the most dangerous creature she had ever seen was trying not to smile. By morning, Pine Hollow had already found 3 new reasons to call Lily Carter hopeless. The first was that she had somehow managed to lose 1 boot between her porch and the herb shed. The second was that she had burned a pan of oat cakes while trying to dry the giant black wolf with 2 towels at once. The third was that the wolf was still there. He lay beside the cottage wall beneath the narrow shelter of the roof, black fur finally clean enough to shine when the clouds thinned. Lily stood in the doorway holding a wooden spoon and stared at him. You were supposed to leave. The wolf opened one gray eye. That was not a suggestion. The eye closed again. Lily sighed. This was, unfortunately, not the first time something large and inconvenient had decided she was responsible for it. At 24, she had built most of her life around other people needing things she had not planned to give. Mrs. Turner needed salve for swollen joints. The Miller family needed cough syrup for their youngest boy. Old Mr. Hall needed someone to check whether he had remembered to eat. Lily needed a quiet morning. Pine Hollow rarely cared. She had never been the kind of Omega people described as graceful. She dropped jars. She tripped over flat ground. Once, she had carried an entire basket of apples into the village square and arrived with only 4 because she had not noticed the bottom had split. People laughed. Lily usually laughed too. It was easier than explaining that clumsy hands did not mean a careless heart. Her mother had understood that. Steady hands are useful, Margaret Carter used to say while teaching Lily how to clean herbs and fold bandages. A steady heart is rarer. The blue enamel wash basin had belonged to her mother. So had the cottage, the old stove, and the habit of opening the door when someone needed help. By noon, Lily had visited 2 patients, delivered a jar of fever tea, and nearly walked into a fence while reading a shopping list. When she returned, the wolf had moved 3 feet. "Impressive," she said. "At this rate, you will reach the forest by winter." He lifted his head. Lily set down her basket. The silver-black clasp she had noticed the night before was still tangled near the thick fur of his neck, cleaner now, but she resisted the urge to examine it again. It was none of her business. Probably. She carried a shallow bowl of water onto the porch and placed it near him. Then she added a small piece of cooked chicken. The wolf sniffed the food but did not eat. "You are very difficult for someone who slept in my garden." No response. Lily crouched a few feet away. "Listen, I helped you because you needed help. That does not mean you live here now." The wolf stood. Lily smiled with relief. "Good. We understand each other." He took one slow step toward the cottage door. Then another. Lily's smile disappeared. "No." He reached the threshold. "Absolutely not." He looked at her. She looked at him. A gust of cold wind moved through the yard. Lily folded her arms. "You are enormous. You shed, and you destroyed $12 worth of rosemary." The wolf stepped inside. Lily stared after him. A moment later, she heard the soft thump of his body settling directly in front of the fireplace. Lily closed her eyes. Somewhere in the village, she was certain, someone had just found a 4th reason to call her hopeless. The wolf stayed in front of Lily's fireplace until sunset, ignoring every reasonable argument she offered. She opened the front door twice. He looked at it, then at her, and lowered his head back onto his paws. She pointed toward the forest. "That is where wolves live." One gray eye opened. "This is where I live." The eye closed again. Lily stood with both hands on her hips. "You are taking this very personally." By dusk, she had accepted one uncomfortable truth. The animal had no intention of leaving because she told him to. So she tried another method. She wrapped her gray cloak around her shoulders, stepped outside, and waited. The wolf followed. "Good," Lily said, starting down the narrow trail. "We are making progress." She walked nearly half a mile into the pine forest, carefully avoiding wet roots and failing twice. The first time, she caught herself against a tree. The second time, the wolf calmly stepped sideways before she could fall into him. Lily straightened and pretended nothing had happened. "You saw nothing." His ears moved. She stopped beside an old boundary marker where the village path disappeared beneath the trees. There. Freedom. Trees. Rabbits. Whatever else enormous wolves enjoy. She pointed deeper into the forest. The wolf stared in that direction for several seconds. Then he turned around and began walking back toward her cottage. Lily watched him go. "You cannot be serious." He did not slow down. She followed, muttering all the way home. At the porch, Lily opened the door, stepped inside, and blocked the entrance before he could follow. "No. We tried living together for one afternoon. You stole the fireplace, frightened Mrs. Turner, and ate my chicken." The wolf sat down outside. Lily closed the door. Silence. She removed her cloak. Scratch. Lily froze. Scratch. Scratch. 3 slow sounds against the wood. She stared at the door. That is manipulation. Another pause. Then nothing. Lily lasted almost 1 minute. When she opened the door again, the wolf was sitting exactly where she had left him, rain beginning to gather along his dark fur. "You are terrible," she whispered. He walked past her. That night, Lily placed an old blanket beside the fireplace. "You sleep here." The wolf circled once and settled down. "Good." Lily went to bed feeling unexpectedly victorious. Sometime after midnight, she woke to the sound of steady breathing beside her. She opened her eyes. 2 gray eyes stared back from the darkness. The wolf lay on the floor next to her bed, his enormous head resting on his paws. Lily pushed herself upright. "We discussed boundaries." His tail moved once against the floor. She stared at him. Was that sarcasm? The tail moved again. Lily sighed and lay back down. The cottage felt different with him there. Smaller, certainly. Warmer too. Outside, wind moved through the pine branches. But for the first time since her mother died, the night did not feel completely empty. Lily closed her eyes. Near the bed, The wolf remained awake, watching the door as though he had chosen more than a place beside her fire. By the fourth morning, Ethan had learned that Lily Carter talked to everything. She talked to the kettle when it boiled too slowly, to the floorboards when they creaked, to the rain when it started before she reached the woodpile, and most of all, to him. "Move your giant head," she said, nudging his shoulder with one socked foot. "You are blocking the fire." Ethan lifted his head and shifted 3 inches to the left. Lily stopped. "You understood that." He lowered his chin onto his paws. "No, do not pretend you did not." She crouched in front of him, hazel eyes narrowed with suspicion. Ethan had faced war councils with less intensity. "If I say kitchen, what happens?" He did nothing. "Interesting." Lily stood. "If I say chicken?" His ears moved before he could stop them. Her mouth fell open. "Traitor." Ethan turned his face toward the fire, but something dangerously close to amusement moved through him. He had not laughed in months, perhaps longer. At the royal residence, laughter always meant someone was trying too hard. Every room changed when he entered it. Conversations lowered. Shoulders straightened. People chose safer words. Here, in a cottage barely large enough for his wolf form, Lily ordered him away from the fireplace because her feet were cold. She complained when he tracked mud across the floor. She used his back to steady herself when she nearly tripped over a basket and then blamed him for being too large. She wanted nothing from him because she had no idea who he was. That should have made leaving easier. Instead, it made leaving feel strangely impossible. Ethan could have shifted back into human form before sunrise. The strength had returned to his limbs. The worst of the exhaustion had passed. But the memory of the broken route, the missing guards, and the men he had heard moving through the forest before he reached Pine Hollow kept him still. Someone had known exactly where he would travel. Someone had wanted him alone. Until he knew who, becoming the king again would paint a target over every person near him. Especially Lily. She returned that afternoon carrying a basket of medicine bottles and nearly dropped the entire thing when she found him sitting beside the door. "You are very dramatic for someone who spent the morning asleep." Ethan moved aside. "Thank you," she said automatically, then paused. "You really do understand me." He looked away. Lily set the basket down and studied him for a long moment. "That should bother me more than it does." A knock sounded at the front door. Ethan rose instantly. Lily noticed. The change in her face was small, but he saw it. "Easy," she murmured. "It is probably Mrs. Turner complaining about her knees again." It was. Ethan watched from the shadow near the hearth while Lily welcomed the older woman inside, found the right salve without checking a label, and refused payment until Mrs. Turner threatened to leave a loaf of bread anyway. Later came a child with a cough, then a farmer with a burned hand from a cooking pan. Lily treated all three with the same patience she had given a muddy wolf in the rain. No questions about status. No calculation. No fear. By sunset, she was exhausted. She sank onto the rug beside him and leaned her head against the chair behind her. "Everyone thinks I am hopeless," she said softly. Ethan looked at her. "Maybe they are right about the clumsy part." She smiled without opening her eyes. "But my mother used to say a steady heart matters more than steady hands." For the first time since entering her garden, Ethan felt something more unsettling than danger. He believed her. Outside, beyond the warm cottage light, a branch snapped in the trees. Ethan's head lifted. Lily heard it too. Her smile disappeared. Another sound followed, farther away this time. Footsteps. Not an animal. Ethan moved silently toward the door, and for the first time, Lily saw that the creature she had been teasing beside her fire had never truly been tame. The footsteps stopped just beyond the trees. Lily stood beside the table, one hand still resting on the basket of medicine bottles, while the giant black wolf positioned himself between her and the door. His body had gone completely still, not frightened, waiting. 3 firm knocks struck the wood. Lily looked down at him. "That is definitely not Mrs. Turner." The wolf turned his gray eyes toward her, then back to the door. Another knock followed. "Miss Carter," a man called from outside. "We need to ask you a few questions." Lily swallowed. Very few strangers came to Pine Hollow after dark, and fewer still knew her name without introducing themselves first. She moved toward the window and lifted the edge of the curtain. 3 men stood on the porch in dark travel coats. Their boots were clean enough to tell her they had not walked far, but their clothing carried no pack insignia and no royal crest. One of them noticed the movement behind the curtain. We are looking for someone. Lily let the fabric fall. Behind her, the wolf made a low sound in his throat. She turned. No. His ears shifted. Whatever you are thinking, no. She walked to the door, but did not open it. Who are you looking for? A man traveling alone, the stranger answered. Tall, dark hair, possibly injured. Lily glanced toward the wolf. His gaze sharpened. Have you seen him? The man asked. No. The answer left her mouth before she had time to examine why. Silence followed from the porch. What about a wolf? Another voice asked. Lily's fingers tightened around the edge of the door. A wolf. Large. Black. She looked over her shoulder. The creature beside her fireplace was large enough to occupy half the room and black enough to make the question ridiculous. Lily faced the door again. I live beside a forest. You are going to need to be more specific. One of the men shifted his weight outside. This one would be difficult to miss. Lily glanced at the broken rosemary visible through the side window. No, she said again. Just rain and bad decisions. For one long moment, nobody spoke. Then the first man said, You should be careful, Miss Carter. Strange things are moving through these woods. Lily felt something cold settle beneath her ribs. Then perhaps strangers should stop knocking on doors after dark without giving their names. The silence changed. She could almost feel the irritation on the other side. Finally, boots moved across the porch. The three men walked away. Lily waited until their footsteps disappeared before opening the door a few inches. Empty path. Wet pine trees. Nothing else. She closed it quickly and turned. The wolf was staring at her. Do not make that face. He remained perfectly still. They would not identify themselves. His eyes did not leave hers. Lily crossed her arms. You are my guest. Unfortunately, the wolf stepped closer. And I protect my guests. For several seconds, neither moved. Then he lowered his head, almost as if accepting something she had not realized she had offered. Lily exhaled. Do not get sentimental. You still owe me $12 for the rosemary. Outside, far beyond the cottage light, one of the men had stopped at the edge of the trees. He turned back toward the window, watched the enormous shadow move behind Lily, and quietly disappeared into the dark. The cottage did not sleep that night. Lily tried. She really did. She checked the door twice, placed the iron latch across it, and told herself the three strangers had already gone. Then a pine branch scraped the roof, and she nearly dropped a cup of tea into her lap. The giant black wolf watched from beside the door. Do not look at me like that, she whispered. You are the reason I am nervous. He did not move. Lily pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders and sat in the old chair near the fireplace. Actually, that is unfair. The mysterious men asking about you are the reason I am nervous. You are only the enormous secret taking up half my floor. His ears shifted toward the window. Lily followed his attention. Nothing moved beyond the glass except rain sliding down in thin silver lines. She waited. So did he. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The fire burned lower. Every time Lily's eyes closed, she remembered the stranger's warning. Strange things are moving through these woods. She hated the sentence because it sounded important without explaining anything. I suppose this would be easier if you could talk, she murmured. The wolf looked at her. Although, knowing my luck, you would probably be difficult about that too. His tail moved once against the floor. Lily stared. Was that a joke? No response. You are getting far too comfortable here. Eventually, exhaustion won. Lily curled deeper into the chair, meaning to rest for only a minute. When she opened her eyes again, pale morning light had replaced the darkness. The fire had nearly died. Her neck hurt. The blanket had slipped to the floor. The wolf was still beside the door. He had not moved to the fireplace. He had not gone to the bed. He had spent the entire night facing the entrance. Lily sat up slowly. You stayed there all night. The wolf turned his head. Something inside her chest tightened in a way she did not understand. She stood, stepped over the blanket, and crossed the room. On the back of a chair hung the white towel she had used after his disastrous bath. She picked it up and draped it gently over his head. The wolf froze. Lily smiled despite herself. There. Much less terrifying. Only his gray eyes remained visible beneath the towel. You know, for something that could probably frighten every person in Pine Hollow, you are strangely polite. He continued staring at her. Lily adjusted one corner of the towel. Do not misunderstand. You are still terrible at following instructions. She moved toward the stove to start breakfast. Behind her, the towel slipped onto the floor. She expected him to shake it off completely. Instead, he picked it up carefully between his teeth and carried it to the rug beside the fireplace. Lily stopped with one hand on the kettle. You like the towel? He placed one paw over it. Of course you do. She filled the kettle and tried not to smile. Outside, the storm had finally passed. Sunlight filtered through the wet pines, making the world look washed clean. Lily should have felt relieved. Instead, she noticed something that made her pause. The wolf was stronger now. His movements were steady. His eyes were clear. Whatever had driven him to her garden no longer seemed to hold him there. He could leave. He simply had not. Lily looked at him from across the small room. Why are you still here? The wolf lifted his head. For one quiet second, the cottage held nothing but the soft hiss of the kettle and the smell of damp wood. Then 3 distant hoofbeats echoed from somewhere beyond the trees. The hoofbeats came closer, then veered toward the southern trail before disappearing into the distance. Lily stood beside the stove with the kettle forgotten in her hand, listening until the forest became quiet again. The wolf had already risen. He watched the window, every line of his body alert, but the danger passed without reaching the cottage. Well, Lily said, forcing air back into her lungs. That was comforting. The wolf looked at her. Yes, I know. Terrible word choice. She spent the morning pretending everything was normal. She checked Mrs. Turner's salve, delivered medicine to the Miller family, and returned before noon with a small bundle of firewood balanced against her hip. Halfway up the porch steps, one log slipped free and rolled beneath the railing. Of course, she muttered. She bent to retrieve it, pushed open the door with her shoulder, and stopped so suddenly the rest of the wood crashed across the floor. The wolf was gone. In his place stood a man. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark-haired, very much human. He stood beside the fireplace wearing an old black shirt Lily had left folded on a chair for a neighbor who never came to collect it. His sleeves were slightly too short. His gray eyes were immediately familiar. Lily stared at him. He stared back. Her hand slowly reached for the nearest object. Unfortunately, the nearest object was a broom. She raised it anyway. Where is my wolf? The man's expression changed by barely anything, but she saw it. Amusement. Your wolf. Lily tightened both hands around the broom handle. Do not make this worse. I am only trying to understand the question. The giant black wolf that has been sleeping beside my fireplace, stealing my chicken, ignoring my rules, and ruining my garden. The man glanced toward the hearth. That sounds difficult. He was. Lily paused. Is. The man's mouth almost curved. Lily pointed the broom at him. Who are you? Ethan. Just Ethan. For now. She narrowed her eyes. That is not suspicious at all. He looked toward the open door. You should close that. You should explain why you are in my house. Both things can be true. Lily did not move. Ethan crossed the room slowly and pushed the door shut with one hand. He did not come closer afterward. That restraint bothered her more than if he had acted threatening. It suggested he knew exactly how frightening he could appear. Lily's eyes moved across the room. The rug beside the fireplace was empty. The white towel was gone. Then she saw it, folded loosely in Ethan's left hand. Her breathing stopped. Where did you get that? He looked down at the towel. You gave it to me. Lily stared at his gray eyes. At the black hair. At the towel. Then back at his eyes. No. Ethan said nothing. No. Lily lowered the broom by an inch. Absolutely not. He remained calm. Lily. She froze. She had never told the wolf her name directly. She had spoken it around him. People had called her by it. But hearing it now from this stranger made every ridiculous conversation of the past several days rush back at once. The bath. The chicken. The towel. The fireplace. You understood everything I said. Ethan's silence answered before he did. Lily closed her eyes. I called you a mud monster. Several times. Her eyes opened. You are enjoying this. A little. Lily lifted the broom again. I knew I liked you better with fur. For the first time, Ethan smiled properly. Then the sound of horses returned outside, louder than before, and his smile vanished. The horses stopped outside the cottage in perfect unison. Lily still held the broom. Ethan still held the white towel. For one absurd second, neither of them moved. Then a voice came through the door. Your Majesty? Lily looked at Ethan. He closed his eyes briefly. No, she said. Ethan opened them again. Lily. No. Another voice followed from outside, sharper this time. Your Majesty, are you inside? Lily slowly lowered the broom. Her gaze moved from Ethan to the door, then to the blackened silver clasp resting on the table where she had placed it after cleaning the mud away. The crown carved into the metal suddenly looked much less decorative. "You have got to be kidding me." Ethan said nothing. Lily pointed at him. "Say something. Anything I say now will make this worse." "That is the first honest thing you have said." The knock came again. "Your Majesty, we have been searching for 4 days." Lily stared at Ethan. For days. The wolf in her garden. The men in dark coats. The frightened way he had watched every road and window. Every strange piece fell into place at once, and she hated how neatly it fit. "You are the Alpha King." Ethan's face gave her the answer before his voice did. "Yes." Lily looked at the towel in his hand, then at the blue enamel basin near the stove, then back at him. "I gave the Alpha King a bath." Ethan's mouth twitched. "You were very determined." Lily covered her face with one hand. "I scrubbed mud out of your ears." "Also very determined." "I told you that you smelled terrible." "You were correct." Lily dropped her hand. "You could have told me." "I could not." "That sounds convenient." Before Ethan could answer, the door opened a few inches under the pressure of another knock against the frame. Lily marched across the room and pulled it open. 4 royal guards stood on the porch in dark uniforms marked with silver wolf insignias. The moment they saw Ethan, every one of them dropped to one knee. "Your Majesty." Lily stepped aside. No one looked at her. The captain rose first, relief visible beneath his formal expression. "We thought you had been taken." Ethan's voice changed. The warmth vanished. The man standing in Lily's cottage became someone larger than the room. "Who told you that?" "Chancellor Mercer. He said your route had been compromised and that you never reached the northern checkpoint." Ethan's eyes hardened. "My route was compromised." The captain glanced toward Lily. "We should return immediately." Ethan did not move. "Not yet." Every guard went still. Lily turned toward him. "Not yet." The captain looked equally confused. "Your Majesty, the council has been waiting for your return." "Then they can wait another hour." Lily folded her arms. "An hour?" Ethan looked at her. "We need to talk." "That would have been useful before I spent 4 days discussing my life with a wolf who turned out to be a king." One of the guards coughed into his fist. Ethan ignored him. "The men who came here were not mine." The room quieted. Lily's anger shifted. "You are sure?" "My guards would have identified themselves." The captain stepped closer. "What men?" Lily described the dark coats, the questions, the warning. With each detail, Ethan's expression became colder. When she finished, the captain looked toward the forest. "If they found this cottage, they may already know His Majesty was here." Lily looked at Ethan. "Then you should go." The words came out faster than she expected. Ethan's eyes stayed on hers. "Perhaps." Lily frowned. "Perhaps." He glanced around the small room, at the fireplace, the blue basin, the white towel still in his hand. "I said we need to talk first." Lily felt something strange tighten beneath her ribs. Not fear, not quite anger. Something more dangerous because she did not understand it. Outside, the royal horses shifted impatiently. Inside, the most feared Alpha King in the northern pack stood in her tiny cottage and looked as though leaving was the last thing he wanted to do. The royal captain wanted Ethan on the road before sunset. Ethan refused before the man finished explaining why. "Your Majesty, the council is unstable. The southern packs are asking questions, and Chancellor Mercer has already assumed emergency authority over 3 security divisions." Ethan's face became unreadable. Lily stood beside the table with both arms folded, listening as the cottage suddenly filled with words that did not belong there. Council. Authority. Security divisions. They sounded too large beside her chipped mugs and drying herbs. "How long?" Ethan asked. "Since the 2nd day of your disappearance." The captain hesitated. He said someone had to keep order. Ethan looked toward the window. Outside, the pine trees moved gently in the afternoon wind. Inside, Lily watched something colder settle behind his gray eyes. "And yet the men who came here were not royal guards," he said. "No, Your Majesty." "Then someone knew enough to search privately." The captain said nothing. He did not have to. Ethan turned toward Lily. "This cottage may be safer than the palace until I know who leaked my route." Lily blinked. "You are staying here?" "For now." "You have guards." "So did I before I disappeared." The answer silenced the room. The captain looked uncomfortable. Lily looked annoyed. "You cannot simply decide to live in my cottage." Ethan raised one eyebrow. I have been living in your cottage. You were a wolf. I remember. That was different. Why? Lily opened her mouth, then closed it again. One of the guards looked down, clearly trying not to smile. Ethan turned back to the captain. Return with 2 men. Tell the council I am alive and recovering. Tell no one exactly where. And Chancellor Mercer? Tell him nothing beyond that. The captain bowed. Yes, your majesty. Within minutes, the guards were gone, leaving only the faint sound of horses fading down the road. Silence returned to the cottage, but it no longer felt simple. Lily picked up the blue wash basin and carried it toward the back wall just to have something to do. Ethan watched her. You are angry. Very observant for a king. You were less formal when I had fur. Lily set the basin down harder than necessary. You let me talk to you for 4 days without telling me who you were. You would have treated me differently. She turned. You do not know that. Everyone does. The answer came too quickly. Lily studied him. For the first time, she heard no command in his voice. Only certainty built from long experience. Maybe that is why you stayed, she said. Ethan looked at her. Lily continued more quietly. Not because this place was safe. Because here, nobody knew they were supposed to be afraid of you. Something moved across his expression and disappeared. Is that what you think? I think you could have left this morning. Ethan glanced toward the fireplace where the white towel lay folded on the rug. I could have. Then why did you not? He did not answer immediately. The cottage filled with the scent of wood smoke and rosemary. Lily waited. Ethan finally said, because for 4 days, I was spoken to like a person who took up too much space near the fire. Lily stared at him. You did take up too much space. I know. And you ate my chicken. Also true. A reluctant smile touched her mouth. Ethan saw it, and something in his posture eased. Then Lily remembered the men in dark coats and the captain's warning. If someone finds out you are here, Pine Hollow could be pulled into whatever is happening at your palace. That is why I am staying long enough to understand who is looking for me. Lily crossed her arms again. And after that, Ethan looked around the cottage as though the question had a more difficult answer than either of them expected. After that, he said quietly, I suppose I go home. Lily should have felt relieved. Instead, the word home landed strangely between them, because for the first time, Ethan did not sound certain he meant the palace. The message arrived before breakfast, sealed with black wax and carried by a royal courier who would not meet Lily's eyes. Ethan broke the seal beside the fireplace while Lily stood at the stove stirring oatmeal she had already forgotten to season. He read the first page in silence. Then the second. By the time he reached the end, the room felt colder. What is it? Lily asked. Ethan folded the papers once. Chancellor Mercer has opened a formal inquiry. Into what? You. The spoon slipped from Lily's fingers and landed in the pot. Me? Ethan placed the documents on the table. He claims you concealed the king of the Northern Pax for personal advantage, interfered with royal security, and may have assisted whoever leaked my route. Lily stared at him. Then she laughed once, without humor. That is impressive. I did not know ruining Rosemary counted as political strategy. Ethan did not smile. He is trying to control the story before I return. Lily wiped her hands on a towel and crossed the room. What proof does he have? None. Then why does this matter? Ethan looked at her carefully. Because people believe accusations faster when the accused is an omega with no title and the man defending her is the king. Lily understood immediately. The anger arrived slowly, hotter because it was familiar. She had spent years being underestimated for dropping things, speaking too softly, taking up too little space. Now the same people who had never noticed her could invent motives for every decent thing she had done. Ethan reached for the papers. I can end this today. Lily's eyes lifted. How? I declare you under royal protection. I order the inquiry closed. I remove Mercer's authority over the investigation. Lily shook her head. No. Ethan went still. Lily. No. He is using the system against you. And your answer is to use more power against him? My answer is to keep you safe. That is not the same thing. Silence settled between them. Ethan's jaw tightened. Lily stepped closer to the table. You can clear my name. You cannot order people to trust me. He looked at her. She continued. If you silence everyone for me, they will say I was protected because I mattered to you, not because I was innocent. You do matter to me. The words came before either of them was ready. Lily stopped. Ethan did too. For one breath. The entire cottage seemed to narrow around that sentence. Then Lily looked away first. That is exactly why you cannot do this. Ethan's expression changed, not with anger, but with restraint. The kind that cost him something. Then what do you suggest? Lily glanced at the letter again. Let them ask questions. You want to cooperate with Mercer? I want him to fail without being able to call it your decision. Ethan stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded once. Very well. Lily blinked. That easily? No. A faint edge entered his voice. Not easily. She almost smiled. The royal courier returned that afternoon with another sealed packet. This one contained a list of documents the inquiry demanded from Lily. Village payment records, medical visits, travel notes, and every interaction she had reported with strangers in the past month. Lily read it twice. They really think I planned all this. Ethan stood behind her, silent. She set the papers down. Fine. They can have everything. Then a small folded note slipped from between the pages and fell to the floor. Lily bent to pick it up. There was no official seal. Only 4 words written in narrow black ink. You should have stayed quiet. Ethan saw her face change. What does it say? Lily handed him the note. The room became very still. And for the first time, Ethan did not look like a king deciding whom to punish. He looked like a man realizing that someone inside his own court had just reached directly into Lily's home. The note stayed on the table between them until the morning light reached the floorboards. Lily had read the 4 words so many times they no longer looked like language. You should have stayed quiet. Ethan wanted the courier detained before sunrise. Lily stopped him. He may not even know the note was there. Or he may be part of it. Then watching him might tell us more than frightening him. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. You are becoming inconveniently reasonable. Lily folded the note and placed it beside the inquiry papers. I have always been reasonable. Ethan glanced toward the blue wash basin, which still had a dent from the night she fell into it. Lily followed his eyes. Do not ruin the moment. By noon, 2 royal clerks arrived with sealed document boxes from the palace, sent so Ethan could review the inquiry from Pine Hollow without returning yet. Lily cleared the table while they unloaded ledgers, route orders, patrol schedules, and copies of council correspondence. The cottage had never held so much official paper. It made the herbs hanging from the rafters look nervous. Ethan began reading immediately. Lily tried to help by organizing the boxes according to the seals marked on their sides. She had just lifted one heavy wooden case when the bottom caught against a chair leg. Careful, Ethan said. I am being careful. The case slipped from her hands. Papers exploded across the floor. One clerk gasped. Lily closed her eyes. I would like everyone to remember that I warned no one I was qualified for this. Ethan crouched to gather the documents. You did say you were reasonable. That was before gravity became involved. Lily bent to help and accidentally knocked another folder sideways. A single sealed order slid beneath the table and stopped near the fireplace. She reached for it, then paused. The wax seal was dark blue. Not black. Not silver. Dark blue. Something about it pulled at her memory. Lily picked up the paper slowly. Ethan. He looked over. What? She turned the seal toward him. I have seen this color before. One of the clerks frowned. Royal route orders use black wax. Exactly. Lily crossed the room and opened the small wooden drawer where she had placed the blackened silver clasp from the night Ethan arrived. She brought it to the light. A thin streak of hardened blue wax still clung near the carved crown where mud had once hidden it. Ethan stood very still. Where did that come from? It was caught in your fur. Lily looked from the clasp to the document. The first night. Ethan took the route order carefully. The seal had been broken and pressed closed again. Inside was a revised travel schedule showing the exact northern road Ethan had taken before disappearing. At the bottom, the authorization line carried the Chancellor's administrative mark. Grant Mercer. The room lost all humor. Ethan read the page twice. This route was never supposed to leave my private office. Lily looked at the scattered papers across her floor. Then someone moved it. One clerk swallowed. Your Majesty, the Chancellor controlled all emergency copies after your disappearance. Ethan's gaze hardened. Lily picked up another document that had fallen beside the first. A patrol reassignment. Same blue wax. Same office mark. Same date. The patrol meant to meet Ethan had been redirected 6 hours before he vanished. Ethan looked toward the window, toward the road leading back to the palace. He did not simply take advantage of my disappearance. Lily understood before he finished. He planned around it. Silence followed. Ethan folded the documents and placed them together. Lily stared at the mess she had made across the floor. So I found this by dropping a box. Ethan looked at her. Apparently. She sighed. I will never hear the end of this. His expression softened for half a second. Not for me. Then he looked again at the blue wax, and the warmth disappeared. The most important clue in the kingdom had been sitting inside a sealed box until the Omega everyone called Clumsy knocked it into the light. By sunrise, Ethan had made the decision Lily had been waiting for him to make. The blue wax route orders were stacked beside the fireplace. The altered patrol schedule lay beneath them, and the black and silver clasp rested on top, like a small piece of a much larger truth. 2 royal clerks had already sent copies through separate couriers. The evidence no longer belonged to one office. Grant Mercer could not bury it quietly. Ethan stood near the window in a clean black coat, while the road outside filled with royal guards. For the first time since arriving in Pine Hollow, he looked exactly like the man the kingdom believed him to be. Lily hated how much colder the cottage felt around him. You are leaving, she said. Ethan turned. I have to. The words were simple, but neither of them pretended they were easy. Lily nodded toward the documents. Good. His eyebrows lifted slightly. That sounded almost convincing. Do not make me regret supporting personal growth. A faint smile touched his face, then disappeared. Mercer used my absence to take control of security divisions. He altered my route. He redirected the patrol meant to meet me. And he opened an inquiry into you because he thought fear would keep everyone from asking better questions. Lily folded her arms. Then go ask better questions. Ethan looked around the cottage. The fire, the herb shelves, the dented blue wash basin, the white towel folded on the rug where his wolf form had once slept. Staying here was easier. Lily's expression softened. I know. That is the problem. He looked back at her. I told myself I remained because the palace might be compromised. That was true. A pause. It was not the whole truth. Lily waited. Here, I did not have to be king every second of the day. You still took up too much space. I am aware. And you still owe me for the rosemary. Also aware. The smile between them lasted only a moment. Then Ethan's voice became quieter. But you were right. A king cannot hide in a safe cottage while someone else uses his authority to frighten people. Lily studied him. This was the part nobody in Pine Hollow would understand. They would see a powerful alpha returning to his palace. Lily saw a man choosing the harder road because he had finally understood why it mattered. Then go home, she said. Ethan's gaze shifted toward the door. The palace is where I am required to go. Lily heard the difference. Before she could answer, the royal captain appeared outside and waited without interrupting. Ethan picked up the evidence packet. Then he reached for the white towel. Lily watched him turn it over once in his hands. You are taking that? She asked. I considered it. Absolutely not. That is a good towel. Ethan looked offended. You gave it to me. I put it on your head. That seems legally unclear. Lily almost laughed. Instead, Ethan folded the towel carefully and placed it beside the blue wash basin. Keep it, he said. Lily looked at him. For the next giant wolf? Ethan held her gaze. No. His voice softened. For this one. The words stayed in the room after he stepped onto the porch. Lily followed as far as the doorway. The guards straightened when they saw him. Horses shifted along the muddy road. Ethan paused at the bottom step and looked back. The inquiry against you ends with evidence, not an order. Lily nodded. Good. And Pine Hollow will receive the supplies it was already entitled to. Better. Ethan almost smiled again. Then he mounted and rode away with the guards, carrying the documents that could expose the man who had used his throne from the shadows. Lily remained in the doorway until the last horse disappeared beyond the trees. When she finally went inside, the cottage was silent. She looked at the white towel beside the blue basin. For days, Ethan had refused to leave because her cottage was the only place where he felt safe enough to stop being king. Now he had left because she had taught him that safety meant nothing if he used it to avoid becoming one. 3 weeks passed before Lily heard the scratching again. The first came just after sunrise while she was measuring dried chamomile into paper packets. Scratch. She froze. The second followed. Scratch. The spoon slipped from her fingers and scattered herbs across the table. Then came the third. Scratch. Lily stared at the door. For one impossible second, The cottage returned to that first rainy night, when a giant black wolf had decided her garden was an acceptable place to collapse. She crossed the room slowly and opened the door. Ethan stood on the porch in human form. No crown, no royal coat, no guards close enough to make the moment feel official. His black boots were covered in mud. Lily looked down at them, then back at him. "You need another bath?" Ethan laughed, and the sound surprised her because it came easily. "No, that is fortunate. My rosemary has only just recovered." He glanced toward the garden where new green shoots had begun pushing through the spring soil. "I paid for the damage." Lily frowned. "You did what?" "There is a crate of rosemary seedlings behind the clinic." "That was you. I owed you $12. You sent enough rosemary to supply half of Pine Hollow." Ethan considered this. Interest. Lily tried not to smile. She failed. Behind him, the village road looked different than it had a month ago. 2 new supply wagons stood near the meeting hall. Medicine had arrived on schedule for the first time in years. The northern road had reopened under a new reporting system that required every shipment delay to be recorded publicly. Grant Mercer had been removed from his authority while the full investigation continued, and the inquiry against Lily had been dismissed after the altered route orders and patrol records were reviewed. Ethan had sent no royal statement praising her. No special reward. Only a copy of the findings with one sentence written by hand beneath the official seal. "You were right to let the evidence speak." Lily had kept it in a drawer and told no one. "Are you staying?" she asked. Ethan looked past her into the cottage. The blue enamel washbasin rested near the wall. The white towel remained folded beside it. The fireplace crackled softly. "That depends." "On what?" "Whether I am still considered a guest." Lily leaned against the doorframe. "Guests usually announce themselves like civilized people." I scratched. "You have hands now." The old method worked. She shook her head. "You are impossible. You said that when I was a wolf. You understood me then too, apparently." His smile faded into something quieter. "I understood more than you realized." Lily waited. Ethan glanced toward the distant royal escort, barely visible beyond the bend in the road. "The first time I stayed here, it was because I had nowhere safe to go." He looked back at her. "Then I stayed because I did not want to leave." The morning air felt suddenly still. "And now?" Lily asked. Ethan took a slow breath. "Now I came because I know exactly where I am going." She did not answer immediately. No prophecy pulled them together. No command bound her to him. No crown could make her open the door. Ethan stood there and waited anyway. Lily looked at the mud on his boots one last time, then stepped aside. "Do not track that across my floor." Relief softened his face. "I will try." "That is not reassuring." Ethan crossed the threshold carefully. Lily closed the door behind him. The white towel waited beside the old blue basin, untouched but remembered. Once, she had washed the mud from a wolf without knowing he was a king. He had returned only after learning that being welcomed by one honest heart was worth more than being obeyed by an entire kingdom.